I never thought I'd be the guy writing one of these posts, but here I am. I feel like I'm in a bad dream, and I just need to get this out there. My wife, Lisa, and I have been married for 7 years. We were that couple everyone said had it all together. You know, the perfect match. I'm James, 34, and she's 32. We met in college, hit it off, and were married 2 years later. We've got 2 kids, a house in the suburbs, the white picket fence, the whole package. Or so I thought. I always consider myself lucky to have her. She's beautiful, smart, funny. Well, she used to be funny. Lately, something's been off. For the last couple of months, Lisa's been distant. I brushed it off as stress from her new job, but I guess deep down I knew something was wrong. She started working late a lot, missing family dinners, work meetings on the weekends, glued to her phone at weird hours. You know how your gut just knows when something isn't right. Yeah, that's where I was. But I didn't want to believe it. It all came crashing down last Friday. I had planned a family game night, hoping to reconnect with Lisa and the kids. I picked up some pizza and was ready to kick off the evening when I noticed Lisa was acting particularly strange. She was jittery, tapping her fingers against the table, and kept glancing at her phone. I thought maybe she was just tired or stressed, but then I caught a glimpse of the screen when she put her phone down for a second. I saw a text notification pop up from a contact named Alex. My heart dropped. I had never heard of this guy before. Lisa had always been pretty open about her friends and coworkers. The red flags were waving like crazy now. After the kids went to bed, I tried to casually ask her about Alex. She brushed it off with a dismissive wave, claiming he was just a new coworker and that she was really busy with the project they were working on. But something in her tone sent alarm bells ringing. Why did she seem so defensive? Later that night, I couldn't shake it off. I told myself I was being paranoid, but I had to know. I made a choice I'd later regret. I picked up her phone while she was in the bathroom. What I found turned my world upside down. Text after text, filled with flirty emojis and not-so-subtle innuendos. Can't wait to see you later, and last night was amazing. My heart raced as I scrolled. It was all there, proof of her affair. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I knew then that my life was about to change in a way I'd never anticipated. I can't even begin to describe the mix of emotions surging through me as I waited for Lisa to come back. I was pacing the living room, heart pounding, a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and disbelief. The moment she walked in, I knew I couldn't hold it in any longer. Who the hell is Alex? I blurted out, my voice shaking. Her face went pale, and for a split second, I saw a genuine shock before she quickly masked it with annoyance. What are you talking about? She snapped, crossing her arms defensively. I held her phone up, the incriminating text glowing like neon signs. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Lisa. Her composure cracked, and she tried to backpedal. James, it's not what it looks like. We're just friends, and those texts were taken out of context. She looked me in the eye, and it hit me. She was lying. The bitterness of it stung like a slap in the face. I couldn't believe how easily she shifted from shock to defiance. I pressed harder, demanding the truth. How long has this been going on? Seriously, you're being ridiculous, she replied, her voice rising. You're just jealous because I'm working hard and having a social life. You need to trust me more. I could feel my blood boiling. A social life? Texting another guy about sex isn't socializing, Lisa. She took a deep breath, her expression changing from defensive to almost annoyed. Look, it was a mistake, okay? I was lonely, and you weren't around. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I felt sick. Loneliness? It was the same excuse I'd heard from friends whose relationships fell apart. My heart shattered into pieces as she nonchalantly explained away something that felt like a dagger to my chest. I had trusted her implicitly, and here she was, making excuses like it was no big deal. In that moment, I realized how much I had underestimated her betrayal. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me, Anger surged through me like a tidal wave, but it was quickly followed by an overwhelming sense of sadness. I had envisioned a future with Lisa, growing old together, watching our kids thrive. Instead, I was standing in a living room filled with memories that felt tainted now. As she continued to talk, her voice faded into a dull roar. I couldn't focus on the excuses or the justifications anymore. All I could think about was the love we once had, now tarnished by her betrayal. It was as if I was watching a movie reel of our lives together, but someone had taken a red pen and scribbled all over it. The tears came before I could stop them. How could you do this to us? To our family, my voice broke, and I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes, but it was quickly extinguished by her defensive nature. She turned it back on me, saying how I had been so consumed by work and had neglected her feelings. It felt like a slap in the face. I was doing my best to provide for our family, to keep our lives stable, and here she was painting me as a bad guy. I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt utterly helpless. All the moments I thought we were building a life together now felt like a lie. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying every memory, every moment that now felt tainted. I had trusted her with my heart, and she had thrown it away like it was nothing. The anger bubbled back up, mixed with the raw pain of loss. How could she be so cold? And then I started questioning everything. Was our entire relationship just a facade? Did she ever love me at all? I spent the night fighting against the memories, against the anger, and against the hurt. I thought of the kids sleeping soundly in their rooms, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in their parents' lives. I needed to make sense of all this chaos, but all I felt was the aching emptiness where my trust used to be. As dawn broke, I finally sat up in bed, my mind racing. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, with one path leading back to the life we had built together, and the other spiraling into the unknown. I knew I had to make a decision, and I had to make it fast. I confronted Lisa again the next morning. I needed to know if she truly understood the gravity of what she'd done. Do you even want this marriage anymore? I asked her point blank, trying to read her expression. Her answer was hesitant. Of course, I do. I messed up. I want us to work through this. But did I want that? The thought of staying felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. It was one thing to forgive her. It was another to trust her again. I couldn't shake the image of her with Alex. The secret conversations, the intimate moments I wasn't part of. In the following days, I found myself wrestling with my emotions. I was torn between love and betrayal, between the family I cherished and the woman who had broken my heart. I spoke to a few close friends, seeking advice. They urged me to take a step back and really think about what I wanted. "You deserve better, man," one of them said. "You can't just pretend this didn't happen." That's when it hit me. I didn't just need to make a decision for us. I needed to think about myself, too. I spent a lot of late nights pacing my living room, imagining a life without her. It felt daunting, scary, and incredibly lonely. But I realized that staying in a marriage built on lies was a betrayal to myself, too. Eventually, I gathered my thoughts and decided to confront her one last time. I told her that I needed space to think and to process everything. I couldn't jump back into normal when everything felt so broken. Lisa was furious, insisting I was overreacting, but I held my ground. After a few weeks apart, I came to a resolution. I didn't want to throw away our entire relationship, but I couldn't pretend everything was okay. I decided to separate for a while. I felt like it was the only way I could truly assess what I wanted moving forward. I needed time to heal, to regain my sense of self before making any permanent decisions about our future. It was a painful choice, but deep down, I knew it was the right one. I wasn't ready to give up on our family completely, but I also knew I couldn't live in the shadow of betrayal. I needed to reclaim my life, and I hoped Lisa would realize the gravity of her actions in the process. The first few weeks of separation felt like a blur. It was a strange mix of relief and heartache. I moved into a small apartment, far from the home I'd built with Lisa and the kids. Every day felt like a battle against loneliness and longing, but I started to embrace the solitude. I found myself rediscovering things I had lost in the chaos of our marriage, my hobbies, my friends, and even a little bit of my own identity. I also started seeing a therapist. At first, it felt weird to talk to someone about my life, but it turned out to be one of the best decisions I made. My therapist helped me navigate through the feelings of anger and betrayal, pushing me to confront my emotions instead of burying them. I learned that it was okay to feel hurt and confused, but also important to set boundaries moving forward. In those therapy sessions, I began to understand that my worth didn't hinge on Lisa's actions. I learned that I deserved a partner who honored our commitment and valued our family. I started reflecting on the good times we had shared, our wedding day, family vacations, late-night talks, while acknowledging that those moments didn't negate the reality of what had happened. After some time, I began to communicate with Lisa again, setting clear boundaries. Our conversations were tense but necessary. I could hear the regret in her voice, and she seemed genuinely eager to mend things. She claimed she was in therapy herself, working on her issues of loneliness and needing validation. I listened but remained cautious, wary of falling back into the cycle of blame and excuses. Eventually, we agreed to meet in person to discuss the possibility of reconciliation. As I sat across from her in that coffee shop, I felt a mix of nervousness and determination. I wanted to be honest about my feelings. I still love you, Lisa, but I can't ignore what happened. It's going to take a lot of time and work to rebuild the trust that was shattered, I said, looking her straight in the eye. She nodded, tears welling up. I'm so sorry for everything, James. I realize now how my actions hurt you and our family. I want to change. I'll do whatever it takes. It was a small step, but I knew that action spoke louder than words. I agreed to take it slow, to work on rebuilding our relationship, but with the understanding that trust would have to be earned back, not given freely. As I left that meeting, I felt a strange sense of hope mixed with caution. I was still hurt, still scarred, but I also saw a glimmer of a potential future. I learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means moving forward with a clearer understanding of what I want and deserve. I realized that relationships can weather storms, but only if both people are willing to work on their issues and communicate openly. And while I was still navigating through the pain, I felt empowered. I had taken control of my life, set boundaries, and wasn't afraid to advocate for myself. I learned that it's okay to demand respect, and that sometimes a temporary separation can lead to a stronger foundation if both parties are committed to rebuilding. I had a long road ahead, but at least I was finally on the right path. The days following our separation were a strange mix of chaos and calm. While I tried to focus on myself and my healing, Lisa's world seemed to be falling apart. Word got out about her affair, and it wasn't long before her family knew everything. Her parents were furious, especially since I had always been the perfect son-in-law in their eyes. They called me, apologizing for Lisa's actions, but I didn't know what to say. It wasn't their fault, but the entire situation had left a bad taste in everyone's mouth. Then came the bombshell. Alex's wife had found out too. Apparently, she stumbled across some of the same texts I did, and let's just say she wasn't as understanding as Lisa hoped. She kicked Alex out, filed for divorce, and to make matters worse, she had connections at Lisa's workplace. Suddenly, Lisa's professional life was in jeopardy, and I heard whispers that she was on the verge of losing her job. It was almost poetic, watching everything unravel for her while I tried to regain control over my own life. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that enjoyed seeing her face the consequences of her actions. She had wrecked our marriage, and now her lies were destroying her career and social standing. But I wasn't going to let this consume me. I focused on the kids, trying to shield them from the mess Lisa and I had created. It was tough, especially with them asking questions like, "When is Mom coming home?" or "Why can't we all just live together again?" Those were the hardest moments. Trying to explain something so complicated to innocent children who only wanted their family to be whole again. Lisa called me several times, trying to mend things. She even suggested going to couples therapy, but I wasn't ready to jump back into anything just yet. I had to make sure I was doing what was best for me, not just for the sake of keeping the peace. I told her I needed time, and for once, she didn't argue. In a way, the aftermath of the affair was like standing in the eye of a storm. Everything around me was swirling out of control, but I had found a strange calm in focusing on myself and the kids. It wasn't easy, but I knew that no matter what happened with Lisa, I was going to come out of this stronger. As time passed, the storm started to settle. I moved further away from the initial shock of betrayal and began to focus on rebuilding my life. I had moments where I missed the idea of what Lisa and I had, our family, the comfort of the familiar. But I realized that those feelings were tied to memories, not the person she had become. The love I had for her was overshadowed by the trust she destroyed, and that was something I couldn't ignore. I took steps to protect my own peace. I had a lawyer draft separation papers, not because I was rushing toward divorce, but because I needed the boundaries. I needed space to heal, and I couldn't do that while feeling tied to a relationship that no longer served me. Lisa tried to reach out a few more times, but I kept my responses measured and short. There was no room for false hope or empty promises anymore. As I moved forward, I began to see things differently. I started to focus more on my relationship with my kids. They became my anchor through all of this. I made sure to show up for them in ways I hadn't before, knowing that they needed me now more than ever. The separation was hard on them, but I vowed to always be honest and present for them. Looking back, this whole experience taught me something crucial. You can love someone deeply and still choose yourself in the end. It's easy to get lost in the idea that staying together is the only way to preserve the family, but that's a lie we tell ourselves when we're afraid of change. Real love doesn't just mean holding on. It also means knowing when to let go. So, what would I tell anyone in a situation like mine? Don't lose yourself in the mess. Betrayal can break you if you let it, but it can also be the push you need to rebuild your life stronger than before. Set boundaries. Prioritize your own healing, and don't be afraid to walk away if that's what's best for you. People will show you who they really are. It's up to you to believe them and act accordingly. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time. Whether or not Lisa and I ever reconcile is still uncertain, but what I do know is this. I've found my strength again, and no matter what happens, I'll never let myself be dragged down by someone else's lies ever again.